Okay, that's great, Johnny. So just want to get now into the other side of things, playing college soccer. You gone through the recruiting process. Now, what is it like to now be at the college level? And what are your expectations for your incoming freshmen in preparation for their first college season? What should they expect?
Um, they got to expect it to be extremely physically demanding, mentally as well. When you come in as a freshman, you got to remember that you'll be competing against the student athletes maybe 4 years older and sometimes more if you're in Division Two. So you're not playing U19s anymore. You're not going in to play the same aged players. You're playing men. So if you're not physically prepared, you're not going to get fit during the season. So if you arrive not fit for your first day of practice and even just a hair off, that might be the only opportunity you get, and you miss the opportunity, you could end up sitting the entire year. Um, it's not uncommon to happen either. It's a real stress test, and usually the returning players are well aware of what's coming with the freshmen coming in. You're looking to raise the standards, so they know what they expect, so they have the advantage and come in fitter. And your expectation as a freshman is to come in and try and compete. And if you're not ready for that, it's really hard. If you miss the 8 ball from the very first session, it's very hard to catch up. If you think about it, if you're not playing, you're not getting the minutes. How do you get fit? How do you find the time to, in a short season, which it is, no matter what, Division One, two, or three, it's a real short season from August right through to November, the start of November. So it's done in the blink of an eye. And if you're not playing minutes, how can you catch up? How do you make an impact to be able to jump out in front of a coach's um, eye, really, for any practice? So it's important
Yeah,
to come in fit. It's as simple as that. If you're not fit, it's not even worth trying.
yeah,
So
yeah,
fitness is a big
yeah,
big deal because you're playing every couple of days. But instead of high school where you're the dominant one, you're a senior. You're now
yeah.
the baby of the group, and you have men looking to basically get all the opportunities they can get. So it's dog eat dog, basically.
Yeah. It's much different from high school because high school you know what you're up against because a lot of times you're going to your local high school, even if you're going to a private school, you still have an idea where you stand. Where college, you have no idea. Every year some new players are coming in to take your spot or push you for the spot that you're trying to hold on to. And it's that first impression. You show up unfit, a college coach, that's the first impression they have. You show up unfit, you show up that you don't look like you're sharp, you don't look like you're ready for that level. It's that first impression, and you can never change that. So we try to make sure our players understand what you do over the course of the summer months is vital to get ready for it. What's the typical day or the week look like for a student athlete in season?
So basically, they have to have. You're only allowed to do roughly. People generally do 6 days of practice, then a day off. So most coaches will take a Monday through Saturday approach, play your game off Sunday, back in Monday. Some coaches change it up a little bit and actually practice on the Sunday, because they want to have more control over the student athletes so that they don't go out and affect their performance through partying too much or doing things
Mm-hmm.
outside of their remit. So as long as you have a rest day with 13 days in between, you're good to go. So some coaches will maybe be off on a Wednesday, play a game on a Thursday, playing Friday, Saturday, Sunday, the whole way through the next week for 13 days straight, and then another day off. So there's parameters to it, and it's up to the coach. These are all questions that are really, really important when you arrive as a prospective student athlete. Can you train and keep up with them and the work rate and intensity that they require? What time do you practice at? Some schools will practice at 6 a.m. Some will practice at 9:30 at night. I know, for instance, Stevens College, Stevens Institute of Technology in New Jersey and Hoboken, because they're restricted with their field and being stuck right in Manhattan. Basically, a phenomenal school, really academic. They're top three in the nation right now in Division Three.
Mm-hmm.
But I know they have to practice, for instance, late in the evening because they have one turf field, lots of sports, so they have to balance their time. So, are you ready to go to school all day, wait around until 9:30 at night to be able to practice, maybe 9:30 to 11? And it might sound extreme, but this is things that you have to ask.
Yeah,
Are your
yeah.
expectations that you're going to get up at 5 a.m. to train at 6 a.m. on a cold, miserable morning, and then finish that to go to class and then hit your academic marks? Um, Sometimes people try to train for extended period of time. Someone's shorter. Maybe they do more game analysis. So like your normal week can change drastically depending on who the coach is and what the school is. So these are questions that are really important for prospective student athletes is
Yeah.
what's a typical week look like? And that's why you ask it. Are you the type of person that's a morning person? Are you able to get up and practice and perform to your academic required standard? Or are you the person that needs that lie in till 8 a.m. and gets breakfast into them to start their day off right? Because if you pick the wrong program and you went for the wrong reasons without knowing the details, you could end up in a whole serious
Yeah.
situation, you know?
Yeah.
So super important.
Yeah. No, we talk to players. I talk to players all the time about their DNA. You are what you are, and don't fool yourself, because if you're the player that shows up early for training, stays late to do extra work, or tries to find other days to do extra, then you're gonna strive at most college programs. If you're the player that is the opposite, you struggle to get there on time. You struggle to even train extra, do the things that really are necessary. Those players are going to struggle. They fool themselves sometimes into thinking I can play at that level, and they don't understand what goes on behind the scenes. And that's what we always try to make sure we prepare our players. And the other thing too is I think I want to discuss the misconception about Division III. I think people think that there's no winter or spring season. And I think in the old days that used to be the case, but now it's changed dramatically, where there's a lot more emphasis put on the student athlete to do things on their own. But you also now have a pretty healthy spring season on top of that as well now.
Yeah. So Division III, basically we get a set number of days we're allowed to work with a student athlete, and it's up to us how we use them. It's 15 days that you can work with it, and then you play a game. So for instance, I might want to go, okay, I'm going to do 3 weeks of 5 sessions. I'm just throwing this out there, and do it short and sharp, 3 weeks where I go hammer and tong, really intense. And then the very last day will be a scrimmage against another college. Some schools like to, because you've only got one day of competitive play. So some schools will just play a normal game, 90 minutes done. Some schools like to bring in a third team to be playing scrimmages and do like switching each third who you're playing against, that type of thing. But you've got
Yeah.
one day of competitive action. So the coach will set that up however they please. You could do 2 sessions a week for a couple of months, 3 months if you want, as long as it's within the 15 days. So yeah, you could do 7 weeks of 2 sessions and then play a game. It's that simple. Whatever their coach is looking to do and achieve for whatever reason they choose.
Yeah.
So it's entirely up to whatever the program wants to do within that restriction. The difference is with Division I, they have more practice days and more competitive days to be able to play. So a lot of Division I schools will end up playing 6 games maybe in the spring. But because we're focusing more on the academic side with Division III, we don't get as many days to practice, but we still practice. We still have a spring season. And, with the coaches, like I said, the program dictates what they want to do. So we could as well, which is another misconception. You can play a Division II school, for instance, at the Division III. You could play an NAIA. You could play any school you want as long as it's within the parameters of the framework you're given between each division. So it happens a lot, especially up around upstate New York and in Ohio and stuff. You'll have Division III schools playing Division I.
Yeah.
We had Sonny Geneseo played Canisius there pre-season this year and tied 1-1. Right, so it's Division III school, state school against the Division I school, 1-1.
Yeah.
But yeah, the typical year, winter, spring, that's what it comes down to. When you hit the springtime, you've got parameters for Division III, different for Division I, but everybody has a spring season, and it's just up to the program and school what they do.
Yeah, and I think I think the greatest thing about Division III too, and I talk to players all the time about, it's a better quality of life as well. You get to be a student athlete. Your life isn't all athletics. You have a chance to really be a part of the community at Division III institutions. And even there's a lot of players that do a semester abroad, something like that. That's available to them as well. It's just those
We
life
actually, sorry to cut you off.
Yeah,
We actually do a lot of. We have a lot of people that actually do multiple sports, which is something at a Division I level you're not going to be able to do. So
yeah,
I know on my team, for instance, I have multiple players who play men's volleyball because their season is in the springtime. It doesn't conflict with our spring season because the coaches talk to each other and make sure we manage the workload. But you could play, for instance, soccer and lacrosse, no problem.
wow,
Division
oh
III,
wow,
as long as the coaches are on the same wavelength. Obviously, you
Yeah.
can't just go be recruited by the soccer coach and
Yeah.
expect to walk on the cross team. But like we have high enough level of athletes that play soccer that were recruited for multiple sports that are able to do it. Whereas at Division One, it just wouldn't be feasible. So
Sure.
it's another thing to think about as well.
Yeah, no, absolutely. What other? I mean, I think we kind of jumped into it there. Some of the advantage of being a Division 3 athlete. So I think, unless there's anything else you want to add to that.
No, like you said, the work life balance is really important.
Yeah.
Division One, I would say, travels a little bit more frequent probably for Division One. They
Yeah.
get a little bit more of a budget to be able to travel further afield.
Sure.
You just got to remember when you're traveling further afield, your homework's still there. It's not like it goes
Mhm.
missing, so you end up doing a lot of work on the road. Whereas with Division 3, for instance, with my program right now, we've only had 6 away games this season, and only 2 of them are hotel stays. So the rest are either travel there, play inside an hour and a half, or
Right.
literally on your doorstep. So
Yeah.
academically, you're not missing class consistently, so you can stay on top of your grades.
Well, that's a great transition, Johnny, because we work into academics now, getting a little bit more into the academics side of things. Give me some ideas of admission standards say at Hilbert College. What was it take for our student athletes to be considered by Hilbert?
So we look for GPA. We're not test based as a school. So a lot of schools will take your SAT scores and ACT and things like that to give you how much academic scholarship money you're entitled to. Whereas Hilbert uses specifically GPA to try and give every student an opportunity basically to attend. The school understands that not everybody is test based academically to be able to perform at the highest level. So they use GPA as the barometer to get into school.
Hmm.
Our admission standards vary depending on the program, but generally speaking, if you apply and you've got basically shown gradual improvement of your academic background, there's a very good chance you'll be accepted. But the difference is if you come in with a low GPA, your academic scholarship money is going to be drastically lower than someone coming in with a 3.8, for instance.
Yeah.
So just as a behind the scenes sort of how Hilbert would work would be if you were a 3.0 student, you might qualify for a specific scholarship. We go from trustee scholarships for 80 to 87.9%, where you'll get like 9,000 off tuition. And then the next one up would be a Hilbert scholarship, and you get, if your GPA is between 88 to 91.9%, you would get X amount again, and it just keeps going
Sure.
up depending on your academic
Yeah.
background. So it really is important that you focus on your
Yeah.
academics because it opens up the windows and your avenues for where you can attend. So the more academic money you can get, whether it's Division 1, 2, or 3, it's all the same. The only
Yeah.
difference is with Division 1 and 2, obviously the athletic scholarships can come into it. But again, Division 3 schools can offer ridiculous academic scholarships that people get too fixated on athletic
Yeah.
scholarships instead of focusing on your academic background and making sure you've got a high enough GPA that you can really take advantage of it and get into a top academic institution with
Yeah.
paying very little. Um, Private schools, especially, can open a lot of doors for people with their own rules and regulations for scholarships that give you a really beneficial education for a good price. Whereas people might focus on a state school, for instance, or an in-state school or public school because the number looks low without really understanding that if they applied for a private school, maybe they can get a scholarship, which would make it cheaper to go to that school over another. And again, you've got to weigh up the different benefits. I work with a student athlete that was offered a athletic scholarship to go to UB University at Buffalo Division 1 school. It wasn't a big athletic scholarship, and he didn't get any academic scholarship, and they were going to be paying $8,000 a year to go to school there. That's without room and board. While they were offered it by a Division 3 school called William Smith, which is a very high end women's program, Division 3, nationally renowned. And they were going to end up paying basically because of their academic opportunity. They were going to pay something like 12 to 14,000 for tuition, but it's a renowned academic institution. So people would look at that without really looking behind the scenes almost and think, oh, we're paying 8 here or 12
Yeah.
there, for instance,
Yeah.
and choose the lower number when academically coming out with William Smith,
Yeah.
um, a degree would get you in the door of top businesses or top, postgraduate
Hmm.
opportunities maybe would open a lot of doors. That extra couple of thousand really helps you with alumni. And is it a renowned degree? Do you come out with something that's really
Yeah.
worth what you paid for, or what are
Yeah.
you looking at the degree? You know?
Yeah, no, no, definitely the weight of the diploma carries a lot of weight. That diploma, and just going back on something you were saying there about the emission standards, depending on what program you apply to, it doesn't mean that you can't get into school if you don't get into that program. It just means that you might have to come in and do general studies for your first year and then reapply for that school within Hilbert or any other school.
Yeah.
As well as
Yeah.
I talk to students all the time about their academic workload in high school. If you're taking just general level classes and you're a 3.5, 3.6, that's much different than students who's taken a APs or honors classes who are carrying that 3.5 or 3.6. And that's something I tell them you have to understand the difference in the weight of those classes and make sure you're aware of that. Because if you have a chance to step up in terms of into the AP or the honors, it's going to carry a lot more weight for an admissions opportunity to some schools. So,
Yes.
Johnny, how about student athletes balance? How do they balance their academics and athletics? As you were talking about earlier, you travel probably not as significantly as a Division I or maybe some other D3s, but at the same time too, you still have travels that you have to balance the missed class time and even
Yeah.
exams sometimes.
Yeah, well, we do study halls, for instance, that go away and overnights and things like that there. So we're doing a trip next weekend to Mount Aloysius, which is about 4.5 hours away.
Mm,
By the time we get down in the hotel, we'll arrive around 8 p.m. So we'll do study hall for an hour just to give people an opportunity to catch up potentially. Um, we travel with the women's program. That's another thing people don't take into consideration. Do your programs travel separately or together? So when we play on Saturday morning at say 11 a.m., the women's program might play at 2 p.m. at the same venue. So you're basically killing time. So you set up opportunities to study afterwards so you can catch up on the work that you've missed from traveling and whatnot. Whereas Division 1 and Division 2 might be a lot more bang bang where you're in and out fast, you're the only program
yeah,
going there, but you're traveling longer distances. So are you capable of doing an assignment in the bus while it's bouncing up and down and trying to produce quality work?
yeah,
Do you need to have a settled structure? Do you need to be in a good environment to hit your academic standards and targets you're trying to achieve? So
mhm,
again, these are all things you need to focus on. Is like distance travel and how often do you travel, how many classes are you expected to miss and then catch up upon? Can you catch up? Do you stay ahead of the bell curve, or are you then
yeah,
going to be behind academically? Can you do it, your workload? So
sure.
these are all factors you need to talk about with the programs you're interested in.
So, I mean, I can imagine what that's like to travel both the women and men's program together. I can't even imagine what it's like to choose what movie you're going to watch because I've watched some terrible movies over the years on traveling with the women's teams, but that's a different story for
Yeah.
another time. um,
Well,
eh,
we only traveled together this year, to be honest, because
okay,
post COVID, it was like the
yeah,
schedules were set up because we didn't know what to expect. We won't be doing it going forward, but just with the ease of like conference games and stuff, we're traveling the same place at the same time, and it
oh yeah,
helps the programs to
no,
run at the
yeah,
same time and make it
yeah,
cheaper,
budget.
But
Yeah, absolutely.
a hundred
Budget. You
percent,
have to
yeah.
balance the budget. So what kind of academic support do your student athletes receive? Obviously, I assume you have academic support team. What do they have advisors? What role do the advisors play in their lives while they're student
Yeah.
athletes?
So we've got academic advisors, and for instance, there's the full-time athletic department coaches who maybe is the head coach of baseball, for instance, for us or
Mm,
lacrosse, who stay on top of the academics and act as the go-between with faculty to be able to coordinate and make sure everybody's on the same page. So when you're missing classes, they understand why within reason, because we focus on them not missing classes, obviously. But if your grades fall below a certain threshold, we will stop you playing sports because it's not trending in the right direction and it's not helping you missing classes. So if you fall below a designated GPA for that student, we'll just take you out of the team until it meets a certain threshold because you're a student athlete, you're not a professional sports star. You're a
yeah,
student first off, so you have to
sure.
understand what you need to hit your marks. And if you're not hitting that standard, rather than flunking out after a year, we make sure we take care of a student athlete academically, and that's what all institutions try to do. You're trying to achieve and make sure you help that student athlete get through their entire 4 years and come out with a degree in their hand and a quality experience as well. So if they're already falling behind, you got to help them get back up. So in today's climate, with the mental health being a big deal, like we've got support coming left, right, and center. You know, student athletes get lots of contact regularly, from academic advisors to mental health experts. We have psychologists on staff, everything. Like, and we're a Division 3 program, so
Yeah.
imagine what some bigger schools would have. Obviously, the
Yeah.
same. So the whole point is to give them experience and make sure that they're not just hung out to dry, and we help them in times of need or if they need any support at any point.
That's great. I mean, that's great. Everything going on in the world today, last few years, having to deal with all that. I'm sure it's important to address all those things and make sure you're staying out in front. It's great to hear that. Um, and then just last question, because obviously I'm sure there are a lot of parents who are starting to pay attention now. What kind of a financial aid or academic aid is available for student athletes? You know, how soon can parents find out? I've always told parents you can fill out the FAFSA forms anytime you want, if you have last year's tax return, and you can get a
Mm-hmm.
guesstimate, an estimator of what you would qualify for. And obviously, unless your tax return changes drastically, that number should be pretty consistent. But it also depends where you're going to school, because some schools won't cover the full amount, but at least you'll have a general idea of what's available.
Yeah. So again, just like you said, you can apply, the sooner the better, to make sure you have all avenues of scholarships available. If you
Yeah.
leave it late, there's a good chance quite a few of the scholarships that are on offer are just aren't available to you anymore that you might have qualified for. We have a scholarship called the Franciscan Scholarship, which is completely tuition free to study at Hilbert if they meet the academic requirements. It's literally just down to your academic GPA and whether you qualify for that or not. But let's say, for instance, you have a 3.5 or 3.6 GPA. Our tuition is 27,000 roughly, and that scholarship would give you 12,000 off. So the tuition to go to school would be 15,000, and then your room and board would come to around 13 roughly thousand. And then there's other opportunities for scholarships, like honors program, for instance, we would run, which would give you $3,000 a year off your tuition. Then you have like leadership programs, which we give you more like similar money off. You can't do multiple; it's one or the other type thing. But let's
Yeah.
say you're in the
Yeah.
leadership program, you'd
Yeah.
be going to do a day of service here and there, do community work, help out. Be relied upon a little bit to help maybe in the
Mhm.
dorm, keep an eye on things, like be a leader basically and growing up. But these are all potential avenues to get academic or financial aid, like off tuition, off scholarships, financial
Mhm.
aid, like through the states. You know, locally you can go through your state department to be able to go and get potential money off. We've got a thing called the Say Yes program, for instance, where if you're from specific city schools in Cleveland, Buffalo, Syracuse, or even a couple in Carolina, that they can go to school at Hilbert for free if they come through those schools,
Right.
tuition free.
Yeah.
You have HEOP program in New York is the higher education opportunities, where you might have a lower GPA, but you've been hard done by. Basically, maybe you have a family situation, maybe you have 7 or 8 siblings and a single parent, and you're doing remarkably well considering the situation you're in. We take students with HEOP for free as well, tuition free. So if they qualify and meet the parameters, um, again, like I said earlier, $1,000 if you do an official visit or any sort of visit to go around the school and go through admissions. So like all
Mhm.
these things all stack
Yeah.
up to give you a better opportunity to attend school and pay as little as possible, really.
Yeah.
And every school has different ways and means to make that happen. Massachusetts might have a specific area or school that they focus on, and the reason they want to give a specific area tuition or scholarship academically. I know in Rhode Island, I know there's other schools that do similar. I know there's like Alfred University in upstate New York have a scholarship for one student from every school, basically, in practically the whole country, who can go to school tuition free. And it's a specific idea they've gone behind, and it obviously can't be just for sports because it has to be open for normal academic students. But their idea is to try and open up the remit and get student athletes from students as well from outside of their local market. So they thought by doing something like this to be an advertising tool to attract students. But these are things
Yeah.
you would never know if you didn't look
Yeah.
into specific schools.
Yeah.
So every school has little details and opportunities. It's just about doing your research. And like I said before, especially schools that don't have an application fee, like it's very easy to apply. a lot of people I'm dealing with are student athletes, especially internationally, are using an application called the Common app,
Yeah,
COMMON,
yeah,
and it's very, very simple to apply. You just upload your transcripts, you answer a few questions of specific schools, and it fires the application off to the school. They'll respond in a couple of days with what it would cost you financially to attend the school. So
sure, yeah,
if you
yeah,
all you do is upload the transcript once and then use your phone to just like look
yeah,
through different schools to find right fits and fire off your
yeah,
application and get it back. So
yeah,
it's very simple. You just have to look through it and be
yeah,
proactive. Simple,
yeah.
be proactive.
Yeah, I think every school, as you said, every school has have different scholarship opportunities, different academic, or sorry, different aid opportunities. It's just a matter of being proactive and searching them out and trying to see what you qualify for. Because there's always ways to make it work, and and
Mhm.
that's what people, I think, people that are kind of on top of things, they tend to benefit from it. So hopefully that will resonate with everybody watching this. But Johnny, I just wanted to say thank you again for doing this. It's been fantastic. Really, it's great insight from you, coming from a college coach with a great deal of coaching experience. And again, thanks so much. I appreciate your time.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Have a good one. Thank you.
Johnny, thanks so much again, and take care. And we'll
Right.
hopefully chat again soon. All right.
Yeah, thanks a lot. Have a good one.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks.